What's going on, my fellow Kino Lords? Welcome to yet another top 10 video. This time we're obviously doing my top 10 favorite A24 horror films. A few weeks ago, I did a video on my personal top 10 favorite directors of all time, so if you haven't seen that yet, please check that out. But this is a video that I've been thinking about doing for the last few months. One reason mostly being the fact that my laundry and taxes scene analysis from Everything Everywhere All at Once has been getting so much traction, and my subscriber base has kind of grown exponentially since then. So I figured why not do something A24 themed, and I figured why not tackle one of my favorite genres of filmmaking, which is obviously horror. And another reason why I wanted to make this video is kind of in both preparation and celebration for Ari Aster's newest release, Beau is Afraid, which is coming out in a few weeks. I am beyond excited for this film. I can't remember the last time I've been this hyped to see a movie. But before I dive into this list, I feel like I do have to make a few things clear. The first one being, I understand that, A24 isn't a genre. They're mostly not even a production company. They're a distribution company that basically just picks up films that they want to give exposure to and distribute theatrically, as well as some physical releases and just general merchandise. So I'm not ignorant to that. I 100% understand it. But these films do fall under the umbrella of the A24 distribution family. And there's also some films in here that I didn't include just because of the fact that I don't feel like it embodies enough of the horror genre for me to include it. Films like High Life, which I consider more of like a sci-fi thriller film that has kind of some horrific elements to it. Under the Silver Lake, another film that blends so many different genres together, including horror in some instances. Even a film like Enemy, which was borderline kind of hard to leave out because I can see why some people do consider that film to be horror. But just to me overall, I consider Enemy to be more of a thriller mystery type film. But anyways, that's enough of that. Let's go ahead and jump right into this list with number 10, which is So at number 10, we have Lamb. Lamb is a film that I honestly didn't really go into with the highest expectations. Mostly because just from what I saw from the trailer, it kind of came off like a bit over the top and silly, and I didn't think I was going to really be able to take, its concept all that seriously. But for me personally, the way it approached this concept and in terms of execution, I think it did an excellent job at immersing me into the world and, kind of tricking me into believing and taking this, sillyish concept seriously, obviously regarding the half lamb, half child type of thing going on. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that not only do I feel like it was approached with some level of subtlety, but I feel like the film was self-aware of the absurdity of something like this. And that kind of made me feel a little bit more relieved as I was experiencing it. And thematically and narratively speaking, it really embraced this mythical and folky element to its story and its characters that, especially by the end of the film, I found really satisfying. And the ending to this film, I feel like it's going to make or break some people. But for me personally, I thought it built up to something that not only could I not predict, but I found thematically enriching. And it's also just a gorgeously shot film as well. It's actually directed by a cinematographer that goes by the name of Valdemar Johansson. And he fully utilized this Icelandic landscape to the best of his ability. I mean, you really feel fully immersed. You feel like you can breathe everything in and just absorb the entirety of the setting, making it feel more authentic. But yeah, I think Lamb is a great film. I understand that this one's a bit more on the divisive side. But this is a film that I've been desperately wanting to buy, the special edition A24 release for quite some time. Maybe after talking about it again after so long, it'll finally give me the push to get it because I do really want to own it. But anyway, yeah, I really dig this movie, and that is why it is number 10 on my list. So at number 9, we have Saint Maud. So with Saint Maud, a lot like Lamb, was a bit more on the divisive side, but I personally really dug this film quite a bit. Not only does it center an amazing performance from Morfydd Clark, who is an up-and-coming actress that just, to me, completely knocked this role out of the park. And it's not an easy role to embody. She has to play a character that is, philosophically and psychologically tortured by her own religious ideology. And unfortunately, just with her experience with social interactions and her trust kind of being betrayed left and right, she is kind of sent towards a downward spiral. of kind of religious fanaticism that I think was portrayed incredibly well. For me personally, I really dug the way that the psychological element was portrayed here. Because for me, a lot of filmmakers do this whole, you know, is she crazy, is she not thing. And I don't feel like this film really made it all that ambiguous, especially by the ending to this film. I feel like it kind of just, you know, puts the nail in the coffin, which at times is something that I do really respect, especially if it's approaching something that I feel like has been done quite a few times already. Yeah, and honestly, I've only seen this film one time, and that was the day it was released. And, I remember still quite a bit of this film. I mean, obviously, I'm kind of dying to rewatch it. But it's a film that has definitely stuck with me. And I just think that the director, Rose Glass, you know, approached this film in a way that really resonated with me. You know, even in terms of the horror elements, I thought all of that, you know, had really great execution. But yeah, Saint Maud, I think, is a great film. And that is why it is number 9 on my list.
Dido, Dido, black coat's daughter, what was it?
So number 8, we have The Black Coat's Daughter. So this is a film that, in my opinion, is incredibly overlooked. I mean, I guess in a way I can kind of understand why it is. But for me, I feel like this film accomplishes so much of what I love about a great horror film. You know, especially in the atmospheric department. The director, Oz Perkins, really knows what he's doing when it comes to crafting an atmosphere. Just the way that the film flows and the way that it's paced. And, you know, obviously with the combination of its lighting, the cinematography, and the way that the musical score is kind of woven throughout the film, combined with the pacing, it just all feels very delicate, and it feels very visionary and purposeful, that it makes it to where, again, the atmosphere in this film is just kind of like impossible to not get engrossed in. I just feel like Oz Perkins has an incredible sense of aesthetic direction. Even with his, this film that came out a few years ago, Gretel and Hansel, a lot of people kind of shat on that movie. And again, I can get it in a way, because when it comes to the writing department, it's lacking quite a bit. But again, when it comes to that aesthetic direction, to me, he's one of the best out there in terms of that department. I really can't wait until he has, you know, kind of a breakout film that, you know, a lot of people can really resonate with. Yeah, his talent is definitely showcased here with The Black Coat's Daughter. You know, obviously not just in terms of atmosphere is it dark, but it's also dark thematically. It's dark in terms of story and character. And I just think that the horror elements here, again, thanks to that aesthetic style and approach to filmmaking, I think is very effective horror filmmaking. And a lot like a lot of A24 horror films, really just A24 films in general, it is quite interpretive. I can see people kind of scratching their heads at the ending of this film. But for me, the way it went about its ambiguity, I thought was really satisfying. It really gave me a lot to chew on. And it ends on a very harrowing scene. I'll just say that. But yeah, The Black Coat's Daughter, I feel like is a bit of an overlooked gem. I definitely push more people to watch it. I can't guarantee that you're gonna love it. But I think that at the very least, you'll be absorbed into what this film offers atmospherically. So yeah, that's why I really like The Black Coat's Daughter, and that's why it's number 8 on my list. So at number 7, we have The Killing of a Sacred Deer. I go way back with this film. This is a film that introduced me to Yorgos Lanthimos, and it's pretty much the first film that I made on this channel that got so much traction. The analysis video that I made for this film back like 5 years ago at this point, you know, really got me a lot of subscribers, got a lot of enthusiasm for the channel in general. And just for that alone, I have to thank this film. But yeah, like there was just so much that this film offered in pretty much every department. I think in terms of creative vision, it's all there. Thematically speaking, I think it's quite rich. In terms of the horror elements, it's off-putting and freaky as hell. And, you know, that's not only thanks to, honestly, this kind of Kubrick-esque horror atmosphere that reminded me a lot of The Shining, but it also just has to do with the fact that Yorgos Lanthimos is just really good at making his audience uncomfortable. And, you know, one great example in terms of this movie is the spaghetti twirling scene. And to seeing Barry Kagan's character chew on that spaghetti as he's speaking throughout the entire scene, you know, about something that feels unsettling is, to me, it's just great horror filmmaking. And yeah, also, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, in terms of the creative vision, you know, when it comes to the directing and the way that the camera is used throughout the film, I just admire so much, and I think it's so engaging. It's just one of the most effective, awkward horror films that you'll ever see. And, you know, I really do praise it for that because it makes it stand out, makes it incredibly unique, and it's just great when it comes to horror filmmaking. So, yeah, I love this movie to death. I go way back with it, and that's why it's number 7 on my list. So at number 6, we have MidSummer, which is clearly written and directed by Ari Aster. Yeah, this is a film that I think I've seen 6 or 7 times total. I think I saw it at least 5 times in theaters and, you know, twice at home. I own the MidSummer director's cut. You know what? Let me go and show you that right quick. MidSummer director's cut. Yeah, I mean, what can I say? This movie is just absolutely, if I can get it out. Jesus Christ. What the? Okay, there we go. This film is absolutely incredible. And the release is amazing. This is definitely one of my favorite physical releases for any movie that I own. It's just really great. Even the disc is just like really cool. Look at that beauty. Oh, get the glare out of the way. Yeah, there you go. Look at that beauty. Really awesome stuff. Yeah, MidSummer. This film is truly an experience. And, you know what? The thing about this movie is that the reason why it's, I guess, a little bit low on my list, has to do with the fact that it's not, like, I do think this movie is flawed. This isn't a movie that I would say is a 10 out of 10. But just in terms of the experience it gives you is, you know, almost unlike anything that you'll ever see. Ari Aster really knows his way around making cults creepier than they already are. And, clearly that's the case with this film. Florence Pugh is amazing in this film. I think she gives a spectacular performance. Honestly, I think her performance in this film should have got nominated for an Oscar personally. I mean, it wasn't as brilliant as, let's say, Toni Collette in Hereditary, which she should have honestly, she should have won the Oscar that year personally. But I think she still should have gotten more recognition for this role because I thought it was mentally and physically demanding and she really killed it. I love that this film is about a breakup, but it also, I feel like, caused a lot of breakups from couples that watched it. Because it's just kind of one of those things that, you know, without spoiling it, kind of makes each partner, you know, question their own morality. Makes it to where, you know, in one way, it's kind of forcing people to pick sides. It's a film that makes you question your own morality. It makes you question other people's morality. And, you know, for that, I do think that it is quite unique in that regard. And, obviously, I really love thought-provoking films that just promote so much endless discussion after the film's over. That really much goes for a lot of the films that I talk about here. But, I think especially with this film, just the long-lasting effect that it has, I think is quite powerful. And the fact that this is a horror film that is 99% of the time shot in daylight, like sheer bright daylight, I think is also something that makes it quite unique. You know, obviously a lot of horror filmmakers deeply rely on that dark lit type of atmosphere. And, you know, Ari Aster just completely scraps that in this film and somehow still manages to creep everybody out with nothing but daylight. And to me, that is just really talented artistry in filmmaking. But anyway, I obviously love this movie so much for all those things. And that is why it is number 6 on my list. So at number 5, we have The Lighthouse, which is written and directed by Robert Eggers. I feel like a lot of people might have a brain aneurysm for the fact that this is only number 5 on my list. Remember, this is the personal ranking. If I was going purely objective, it's at least top 2. I mean, this film is incredible. Okay, I really love this film. There's so much about this film that I just appreciate so much out of horror filmmaking. The performances are absolutely insane. They both should have got nominated for Oscars. Hell, arguably even won for it, especially Willem Dafoe. Yeah, Robert Pattinson, Willem Dafoe absolutely killed it in this film. Love the performances to death. You know, Robert Eggers' ability to just build the psychological element to this film, I think is some of the best we've ever seen out of a horror film, period. I feel like the psychological element of it all is brilliantly and naturally woven into this film's character themes and story as well. It's about isolation. It's about toxic masculinity. It's about sexual repression. It's about so many things. And I just really loved and appreciated the way that Robert Eggers was able to explore this film in the best way I could possibly ask him to. I mean, atmospherically, it's on a whole other level. As I mentioned, psychologically, he killed it. And thematically, it's rich as hell. And it's just incredibly artful and also ambiguous in a lot of ways. In a lot of ways, this film is a bit straightforward and easy to read. And then in a lot of other ways, it's incredibly interpretive and in some ways even abstract. And also, like any good horror movie, it's got some extremely disturbing moments. I've seen this film at least twice now. And there's a few scenes in this film that just always make my jaw drop. Like, I know the scene's coming, and I'm still shocked by it. Yeah, obviously, I think Robert Eggers is talented as all hell. To me, he's an artistic visionary. And, I can't wait to see what else he makes. I mean, there's a lot of stuff planned for him already, like the Nosferatu film, which I am so excited for. I even really love The Northman. I mean, this guy has not missed yet. The Lighthouse, incredible film. Robert Eggers, incredible filmmaker. And that is why it is number 5 on my list. So at number 4, we have The Witch, which is another film written and directed by Robert Eggers. I know that a lot of people wouldn't dare put The Witch over The Lighthouse. It's certainly not as ambitious as The Lighthouse or The Northman. It's his first feature-length film, and therefore being like his simplest one. But, to me, it's just my personal favorite one. I saw this film, I've seen it at least 6 or 7 times, just in general. And, it just slaps every single time. Everything about this film, I just think is brilliant on every level. The horrors of it, the suspense of it, the atmosphere, my god, the atmosphere. Robert Eggers is basically crowned as the contemporary king of horror atmosphere. And I don't disagree with that. This guy 100% knows what he's doing when it comes to atmosphere. And to me, this is up there as one of the best contemporary atmospheric horror films. Again, just the way that the score is utilized among the camera work and the pace and the lighting. Again, kind of like Oz Perkins, that sense of aesthetic direction is absolutely insane with Robert Eggers. And to me, that's the case with The Lighthouse as well. But here, I guess just like the folky element of it, I think just resonated with me a little bit more. And to me, just that seductive scene in the forest with the witch and the little boy is just chillingly brilliant. Every time I watch that scene, I get goosebumps. And I get goosebumps not only because the sheer execution is creepy as hell, but I also get goosebumps just because it's just a brilliantly crafted scene. But yeah, The Witch is, to me, the best contemporary folk horror film that I've seen. And if you really love The Witch, you'd probably really love a film called Hagazusa. It's an Austrian horror film. And Hagazusa embodies a lot of what also made The Witch great. To me, it's quite different, thematically speaking, and even just in terms of character and story. But in terms of atmosphere and aesthetic direction, it is just so absorbing and just, embodies a lot of what people, I believe, love from The Witch. So I definitely recommend checking out Hagazusa. I feel like that's another, overlooked gem of a horror film. But yeah, The Witch is absolutely amazing. I love that film to death, and that is why it is number 4 on my list. So at number 3, we have Under the Skin, which is written and directed by Jonathan Glazer and starring Scarlett Johansson. I also go way back with this film. This is a film that I watched before knowing even what the hell A24 was. At the time that I saw it, it was one of the most unforgivingly abstract and slow-paced films that I'd seen at the time. And I was surprised at just how much I couldn't get enough of it. This film is not only frightening as all hell, thanks to Jonathan Glazer's direction, and again, just having this gathered sense of atmosphere. But it's also thanks to the score from Michael Levy. I would kill to see a screening of this film with a live orchestra playing the score. They have had screenings like that for this film, and again, I would pay so much money to see that if I had the money. The score itself is haunting and terrifying as hell, but not over the top. It's a very simple score that, does more than just get the job done. It is absolutely chilling. And Scarlett Johansson in this film gives a superbly subtle and intense performance here. Obviously she's very dialed back, in comparison to all the acting work she's done before and after this. But, it's arguably one of the most powerful that she's done. And also what I really love about this film is that this film's sense of abstraction is not only artistic as hell and thought-provoking as hell, but it's also terrifying. Just the way that it makes the audience feel confused about a situation and not fully understand exactly what they're seeing in certain moments, I feel like just amplifies the terror of it all. And also I just feel like the way that this film explores the human condition and humanity in general in this really bracketed and removed way, just feels very existential and, very self-criticizing in a way that is also chilling and uncomfortable, but also at the same time very honest and enlightening. And yeah, like overall, this film, as I mentioned, it's profound, it's powerful, it's terrifying, it has such an amazing ending that sticks with you forever. But yeah, I also have a whole review on this film as well if you want to hear my more extensive thoughts on it. But yeah, overall, obviously, this film is absolutely amazing, artful filmmaking, and that is why it is number 3 on my list. So at number 2, we have Hereditary, which is obviously written and directed by Ari Aster. I feel like a lot of people thought that this was going to be my number 1, but it was incredibly difficult to put this one as number 2 because I am deeply, deeply in love with this film. This film petrified me in a way that no film has done since I've seen it. Even other films like Caché from Mikhail Haneke that not only do I consider to be a better film overall, but petrified me like hell. Even that film didn't shock me to my core as much as this film did. Hereditary is just such a brilliant piece of horror and dark drama filmmaking. To me, a lot of the horrors of this film come from its more grounded and rooted to reality approach to its narrative and characters. A lot of what makes this film horrifying is just what makes you feel like could happen in real life. And that's not to downplay the more supernatural elements of horror that this film rakes in the third act, because even that stuff I think is really haunting and very off-putting and chilling in a lot of different ways. But to me personally, what I found to be more horrifying in this film, was that, dark family drama aspect of it. Just everything that happens with Toni Collette and her daughter and her relationship with Alex Wolff is just like, and the husband being caught up in all this shit. It was just, the outcome of certain characters. It's all just directed and acted and written in such a honest yet dark and compelling way. And already, as I mentioned earlier in this video when talking about MidSummer, Toni Collette in this film gives one of the best performances from a lead actress I have ever seen. She is beyond incredible in this film. There's not a single solitary moment of her performance that comes off as just acting. Everything about her performance feels so authentically embodied, and just the amount of emotion she has to embody a roller coaster of emotions in this film. And, it all just feels so genuine and, so believable and engaging. And it's such an emotional performance that makes the audience itself feel very emotional. And again, all of the horror elements of this film, I think, are incredibly well done. Even a lot of the supernatural stuff we get in the third act, I think is, in terms of supernatural horror, it's some of the best you're ever going to see. But yeah, I really can't give this film enough praise. Ari Aster's execution and just his vision is just really compelling and horrifying. And he also has an excellent sense of atmosphere and, sense of aesthetic vision as well. The way that the camera moves throughout this film, the way that the score is interwoven with it, the pace of it all is just all very well realized, and I just couldn't get enough of it. I love this film absolutely to death, and that is why it is number 2 on my list. Alright, the time has come to finally unveil my number 1 favorite A24 horror film, and that film is... Climax, which is written and directed by no other than Gaspar Noé himself. Climax is a film that I saw, I believe, 3 times in the theaters. The first time I watched it, I just knew that I had to experience this at least 2 more times while I had the chance in a theatrical setting, because everything about this film is just so amazing, so horrific. So much artistry behind the camera. And just, I don't know, to me is some of the most compelling pieces of horror filmmaking I've ever seen in contemporary cinema. Gaspar Noé, to me, is just one of the most talented directors that we have. This guy, I feel like just knows how to present a film better than anybody. And I do mention this in my top 10 favorite directors video. Spoiler alert for those who haven't seen it yet. But, just his ability to present a film through the camera work and the lighting and the sound and the score. I mean, I understand that there's a lot of people involved into these aspects of filmmaking, but you can just tell when you're watching a movie how much the director himself envisioned with how comfortably everything is presented and woven. And Climax is, to me, one of those films where you're watching it and you're just like, damn, this dude just had a vision and he just presented it to us the way that he envisioned it, and it just works on every single level. This film, to me, is horrifying as all hell. And again, a similar way like Hereditary, its horror is rooted to reality in a way that makes a lot of people feel very uncomfortable. There's absolutely nothing supernatural about this movie. In fact, this film is actually based on a true story, and it just delivers one of the most immersive and nightmarish experiences that you'll ever witness. Just the way that Gaspar Noé, again, utilizes lighting, utilizes story and character context, utilizes the camera movement throughout the film. A lot of this film is compiled of really long take sequences, and it just looks so comfortably executed. Just the way that the camera twists and slowly turns throughout the film, the way that, he plays with upside down camera work, especially the third act of the film. It's just like he's just having so much fun making a movie so fucking horrifying. Without really spoiling it much, it's basically a nightmare of an acid trip gone wrong. And to me, what makes it even more horrifying is throughout this very disorienting experience, you never really see any of the hallucinations that these characters are experiencing. All we really get in some instances are just some frightening descriptions of what characters are actually witnessing. But other than that, it's all up to the audience's imagination to kind of get a grip on what they're actually experiencing. And to me, leaving the visuals up to the audience's imagination makes it even more horrifying. But yeah, this film, in every way possible, I think exceeds in regards to horror filmmaking. And it's a pretty simple film as well. It all takes place in one location. There's not really all that much to its narrative and conflict. But yet, I actually find a lot of these characters quite compelling, and Gaspar Noé goes out of his way to actually make sure a lot of these characters have their own thematic conclusions to them by the end of the film. And that's another layer of this film that I think is absolutely masterful and really appreciate, because beyond, its incredible nightmarish direction and aesthetic approach, in terms of character writing and story, again, even though it's simple, there's actually a lot of layers to these characters that I just really admired. And also the score and soundtrack to this film is an absolute banger. I always find myself listening to the score and soundtrack time and time again. And there's also something about the mid-credit sequence that we get to this film that I just love so much. There's something just about the audacity of it, but also I just find so unique and fun about it. But yeah, to me, this film is an absolute masterpiece. Clearly, it's my favorite A24 horror film. I guess there's some people out there that wouldn't classify this as a horror film, but I challenge you as to why that is. But yeah, Climax is a film that you haven't seen yet. I really implore you to check it out. Again, it's very, very intense. It's very unforgiving with its kind of explicit portrayals of certain things. But in the sense of Gaspar Noé's filmography, it's actually one of his lighter films in terms of content, if we're comparing it to stuff like Into the Void or Irreversible and I Stand Alone. To me, this is his, I guess, easiest film to watch besides Vortex. But yeah, that's about it. That is my top 10 favorite A24 horror films. Please consider joining the Discord for $5 a month on Patreon. You get to be part of a global film-loving community with people like me and people like yourself, and it is an absolute blast. I don't think you'll regret it. And also don't forget to not only let me know what you thought about my list, but please leave your top 10 favorite A24 horror films down in the comment section below. And if you really enjoy what I had to say about these films, give it a thumbs up and share it amongst your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to be updated on more film-related content.